Hey yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Ace. This is Fantasized Football. We are back once again, bringing y'all some more fantasy football content for the 2021 fantasy football season. We're doing a little something different today, right? Draft season's approaching, so I wanted to give y'all kind of a general idea of what my draft strategy is for fantasy football in 2021. But before we get into that, real quick, shout out to each and every one of y'all that come by on a weekly basis, show your boy some love and support. Me and my boy, we really do appreciate it. If you're new, thank you for coming by, giving me a little bit of your time. I really do hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my goal of 300 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the fantasy football season. But like I said, we're kind of going to go through what my general draft strategy is for fantasy football in 2021, right? I get this question a lot, so I figured I just kind of put it out there, or whatever, right? We're kind of freestyling too. Phone machines over there, no chucking it today. Need to let the little guy charge for a little bit. But yeah, so I'm just going to kind of go through, give you guys some tips, whatever it may be. I don't really know how we're going to format this. It's probably going to be like a relatively short video, like probably right about 10 minutes, because I'm gonna try not to go off on too many tangents. But without further ado, let's just get right into it, right? So I play in mostly half PPR and full PPR leagues. Just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I don't play in standard leagues, but that kind of like with what I'm going to say, like to start of like kind of the first two rounds, it actually applies more in standard, but just keep in mind that I'm looking at this from a lens of half PPR and full PPR. So for the most part, in about 90 to 95% of my drafts, I'm going to be drafting two running backs with my first two picks, right? I want to lock in the position because there's a lot of positional scarcity, whereas with wide receiver, there's just a lot more depth, right? On the majority of offensive plays in the NFL, there's going to be at least two wide receivers on the field, right? Whereas there's only going to be one running back on the majority of plays, and there's going to be 2 to 3 fantasy relevant wide receivers on the majority on most teams, right? On the majority of teams, we'll have 2 to 3 relevant fantasy wide receivers. In best case scenario, like in a situation with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you're going to have 2 fantasy relevant running backs. So there's just less available at the position. So that's why I personally always prioritize running back early and often. There is exceptions to the rules, right? You could go with Kelsey. I would never take Kelsey in the first round. I'm never going to take a quarterback. I'll never take Mahomes in the second round, Josh Allen in the third round. I'm probably not going to be looking at quarterback myself until probably the 6th round, just because you can more than make up for the point differential. There's not as big of a gap there. Whereas if you wait on running back, I would never be a 0 RB guy because I don't want my starting running backs to be, like Kareem Hunt and I don't know, let's just pull up the rankings here. Kareem Hunt and let's just say, for example, here, like James Conner, right? I would never want those two guys, Chase Edmonds and Damian Harris, to be my two starting running backs. So I'm going to be drafting running backs with my first 2 picks and then figuring out from there. But if we get to the 3rd round and a third running back that I have ranked in my top 15 is still available, I'll literally start my draft running back, running back, running back. If it's a 3 receiver league, I'll kind of fade that a little bit, but still it's just like having 3 running backs is so, 3 top 15 running backs is such an advantage, because if one of your guys goes down, and with the nature of the position at running backs are generally going to get hurt because they're, down and doing the dirty work and whatnot. So you want to have depth there, one, because there's not a lot of depth at the position overall, but because of injuries, you want to have 3, 4 guys that you feel confident in slotting in as your RB2, because you do have to start 2 every week, right? So in the 3rd round, if there is a 3rd top 15 guy, more often than not, I am going to go with him. But if not, then I'm looking at either a wide receiver or I'm looking at a tight end, right? For me, it's Waller at tight end. And the reason why I like Waller more than Kittle is just because I feel he's a little safer. And early in drafts, I prioritize safety and I prioritize volume, right? And I think that Waller will get more volume, and I think in turn he will be a little bit safer. Same goes for the running backs. Like, for example, with running backs, I would rather go with a guy like Zeke than Jonathan Taylor, or Aaron Jones over Jonathan Taylor, because with the Packers and with the Cowboys, we kind of know what we're going to get, right? Whereas with the Colts, you don't know what you're going to get. There's a lot of moving pieces there. You got Marlon Mack back. You got Nyheim Hines there. You got a new quarterback in Carson Wentz. There's just a lot going on. So I would prefer to go with the guy that I think I can project the volume for more accurately, right? So that's kind of what I'm doing in those first 2 rounds, getting running backs that I feel like are going to get a lot of volume, a lot of opportunities, because volume is king for fantasy football. Then we're over in the 3rd round. We're looking at a third top 15 running back if they're there. If not, we're looking at guys like, if you're lucky, you might see A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson there. 2 guys that I absolutely love. If not, I'm fine with Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen. DK Metcalf too, but like DK Metcalf's probably going to go in the 2nd round because everybody really loves him. But me, I have A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson, all ranked above DK Metcalf, at least in full PPR. And I like Robinson a lot. Obviously, I got the fucking autographed jersey back there because he's a guy that we know what we're going to get, right? He's going to get you 100 catches in 17 games. He's done it the past 2 seasons, or he's been close to 100 catches, right? He's going to get you 1,100, 1,200 yards. And this year, with an improved offense, with improved efficiency, there's more opportunities for touchdowns, more scoring opportunities in the offense. I prefer to get a guy that I feel like can get me 100 catches over a guy that I feel like can get me 10, 12 touchdowns, because touchdowns are so unpredictable, not a sticky stat. So I'd rather go with volume over touchdown upside, right? That's kind of how I look at things. And then later on in the draft, I'm looking for upside. Somewhere between the 5th and 6th round is where I start shooting for upside. So in that 3rd round, you're kind of like, for me at least, you're looking at either a a back end wide receiver 1 or a top 15 running back, or one of those top 3 tight ends. I mean, Kelsey's not going to be there, but either Waller or Kittle. I've seen Kyle Pitts shooting up into like the 3rd, 4th round. I would absolutely never do that. But moving on to like kind of the 4th round area, right? This is where, depending on how you've started, you got to make a move. If you went with 2 running backs and a tight end, you want to get your wide receiver 1. If you started with 3 running backs, you want to get your wide receiver 1. If you started with 2 running backs and a wide receiver, a lot of the time, probably more often than not, I'm just going to double down and get my wide receiver 2 here, especially in a 3-receiver league. Because a lot of the time you find that in the 5th round, you can get like a Mike Davis or a Myles Gaskin or whatever to kind of like fill in your flex, or like if something happens to your RB2, your RB1, you can slot them in as your RB2 in order to kind of replace them, right? And you're going for like more of upside if everything hits for them. But if you feel like you need to lock in like a guy like Mike Davis in the 4th round, I don't even hate that, right? Or Myles Gaskin, because I think the upside is there. It's not the safest pick, but you could do that, right? But you also do have the option to go with, like, if you like a guy like a half PPR like Josh Jacobs, you could do that, because I think he's relatively safe, but I don't know how much upside is there. So in the 4th round, more often than not, I'm going to be drafting a wide receiver. There's a lot of good guys that are generally available in the 4th round. You'll see Robert Woods there a lot, Julio sometimes, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, guys of that nature. I'm looking at more like guys like that than I am at like Mike Evans, right? Like a Mike Evans, or even like, Tyler Lockett's more like 5th, 6th round, but I prefer, like I mentioned, same thing with the running back, same thing like I've been saying this whole time, guys with consistent volume, right? I'd rather get the guy that's going to give me 14, 15 PPR points week in and week out than the guy that's going to get me 30 points and then 4, 5, 6, 7, because if he gets me 4, 5, 6, 3 weeks in a row and then I bench him, then of course that's going to be a week he goes off for fucking 50, right? I've said that before with Lockett, but that's kind of how I feel. So in the 4th round, I'm probably locking in my wide receiver 2. If I haven't, I'm locking a wide receiver regardless. My wide receiver 1 or my wide receiver 2. Now you move into the 5th round. If you got 3 running backs, you got 1 wide receiver. This is where in a 12-team league, I'm probably more often than not honestly looking at TJ Hawkinson, especially in full PPR, because I think the volume is going to be there, right? And I want to get some form of positional advantage at tight end, right? Somewhere, because I'm not going to do it at quarterback. So especially in a 10-team league, if you didn't get Waller, you're going to want to get Hawkinson. If you did get Waller here, if you've got 2 running backs, 2 receivers, lock in your running back 3. Probably 90% of the time, I want to walk out of the first 5 rounds with 3 running backs, right? If Henderson's there, Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, guys like that, those are the guys I'm kind of targeting there. If you have 3 running backs, you have 1 wide receiver, then we're looking at Hawkinson, or if not, we're looking at another wide receiver. Deontay Johnson. I'm even cool with T. Higgins around this range, taking a shot on DJ Moore. This is where, like, the 5th, 6th round is where you start shooting for upside a little more, because those first 4 rounds are going to be kind of the core of your team. So you want those guys to be steady. You want steady production week in and week out. At least I do. So that's how I kind of approach it. I want to lock in a few good running backs, have depth at the position, get at least one wide receiver in the first 4 rounds that I feel confident slotting in as my wide receiver 1 week in and week out. And if I can, if the situation kind of calls for it, more so in 10-team than 12-team leagues, I'll get a top-tier tight end in the 3rd round and just roll it and shoot for the moon with, grabbing a bunch of wide receivers later on. But that 5th round, right? That 5th round, we're either getting our 3rd running back. If we already have our 3rd running back, we're looking at a wide receiver. If not, we didn't get a top 3 tight end. I'm cool with Hockenson here in a 12-team league. If it's a 10-team league, Hockenson might even be there for you in the 6th round. Kyle Pitts, not really for me here. I mean, he's going in like the 3rd, 4th round. I don't even know if I already said that or not. That's just not for me, right? But now when you get in the 6th round, if you went safe to start, right? Say you started with 2 running backs, you got yourself a tight end, you got yourself Darren Waller, you got your wide receiver 1, and then you grab Mike Davis to kind of like, fill out your running back core, right, to play your flex. This is where I'm going to shoot for upside. This is where I'm kind of going to be looking at more like guys like if Jamar Chase is there, I'd be looking at maybe even Chase Claypool, Brandon Ayuk, guys like that have a lot of upside. You shouldn't really need running back here. We're probably going to be waiting later on to get like, I don't know, like a guy like Damian Harris. Like that's my running back 4 is going to be like upside. If something falls to you, Javonte Williams is a guy I absolutely love, right? If not, I'm going to be kind of like waiting if a value falls to you, right? If you're in the 6th round and Chase Edmonds is there, right? A guy with a lot of upside, whatever it may be. If like ETN falls there in full PPR, half PPR, whatever, those are picks that I'm okay with, right? But if not, I'm okay with if I have 3 strong running backs waiting and even going with like James Conner, Damian Harris, even like David Johnson, especially if Deshaun Watson's back. If not, I'm even cool with waiting until later and getting like a Michael Carter, a Kenyon Drake, one of the Tampa Bay running backs, because then like you don't have to depend on them as much. You don't have to worry as much. So then you can kind of like fill in and start grabbing upside at wide receiver. And then for like the rest of the draft, you're just throwing darts, right? I'm looking at quarterback, usually somewhere between the 7th and 10th round. Like the guys that I'm targeting the most at quarterbacks, depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson, Jalen Hurts. If Watson goes to Philly, of course I'm not looking at Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts is a guy I really like. Ryan Tannehill I absolutely love. Matt Stafford I really like. And then even if you go with like a Tom Brady, like waiting until the last round of your draft and just taking a fucking flyer on Trey Lance or Justin Fields, like a high upside type of guy, Trevor Lawrence, whatever it is, to kind of like reinforce that to get like that boom option. And then vice versa, like on the other side of the hand there, if you draft like a guy like Jalen Hurts, that's a little risky later on in the draft, like way later, maybe just, like grab Kirk Cousins, or a lot of time you'll be able to get somebody off the waivers, but like a guy like Kirk Cousins is very safe if you're in a little deeper league, whatever. I'm usually not one to draft backup tight ends, whatever, but like for like kind of an overview, right, of all this. The first couple rounds, I'm trying to prioritize running back. If there's a 3rd top 15 running back available in the 3rd round, I will grab them, right? If not, I'm either looking at Darren Waller or one of like A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen in that order, right? Those are the guys I'm kind of looking for to be my wide receiver 1 or to grab Darren Waller as my tight end if I did not grab a 3rd running back. If I do go with the 3rd running back in the 4th round, I'm looking at guys like Robert Woods, maybe even Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, if he's healthy, he's ready to go. I'm sorry, McLaurin would be another guy that I would consider in the 3rd round too. And then if you already have your wide receiver 1, again, I'd probably take one of those same guys to be my wide receiver 2, unless you feel like you need to reach a little bit to get like a Mike Davis, a Myles Gaskin, or if you like Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson. But more often than not, for me, I'll just wait till the 5th round and hope that one of those like 3 or 4 guys falls to me. If not, I'm not like livid with myself having to take like Edmonds or in full PPR, at least Edmonds or ETN or something like that. And then when you're moving into the 5th round, if you don't have a tight end in 12-team leagues, I'm looking at Hockenson here. On a note of Waller in that 3rd round, especially in 10-team leagues, I love having that positional advantage. 12 teams, it's not as important. But if you don't take Hockenson, then you're going to be kind of like left with like Hockenson, or if you prefer Mark Andrews, one of those two. If not, you're left with like Goddard, Irv Smith, Tyler Higbee, whoever it may be. Like Noah Fant, guys that I'm just like not super, super confident in. And then from there, you want to lock in your quarterback. You want to get yourself, like, at least I do. I mean, this is my kind of idea, but I'm speaking this into you, to all y'all's minds, right? You want to get like a Jalen Hurts, a Ryan Tannehill, a Matt Stafford, somewhere there in that 7th to 9th, 10th round range, or Tom Brady, whatever it is. And then from there, you're just kind of shooting for upside, right? You want to get your running back 4 at some point. You want to get some more wide receivers. Always, obviously, have more wide receivers than you do have running backs. And towards the end of the draft, just shoot for fucking the moon. Get guys that you know that after like 2 or 3 weeks of shit aren't working out, you're not going to have a problem with cutting them. Like, I would rather draft, like, I don't know, like a Terrace Marshall than I would like a T.Y. Hilton. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really would. Just because T.Y. could hit, and I could be completely fucking wrong, but we kind of know what T.Y. is. A guy like Terrace Marshall, it's like, well, what is he going to be? Like, I'd rather later on in the draft just throwing darts, and see what the fuck happens, right? So that's kind of how I approach my drafts. You guys take all this with a grain of salt, of course. Running back early. Always prioritize running back early. A lot of depth at wide receiver, so you can kind of fill in as you go. Don't have to worry about that. Try to get some semblance of positional advantage. Somewhere, for me, is usually tight end, either Waller a little earlier, TJ Hawkinson, 5th, 6th round, whatever, and then just fill in your wide receiver core. If you have 7, 8 wide receivers, you have 1, 2 guys that you're really confident in, somebody else will hit. You can slot them in your flex. A lot of time when you're drafting that 3rd running back early, it's not to exactly play them in your flex week in and week out. It's more so to just strengthen the depth, because there's so much more depth at wide receiver. Strengthen the depth in terms of running back on your roster, because you can get so much good value at wide receiver later. Like, you can get Antonio Brown in the 8th, 9th round. You can get a guy like Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault late. Guys like that, right? That have the upside to hit and be week-to-week flex options, week-to-week wide receiver 2 options, whatever it may be. So that's why we prioritize running back early. We want to get a semblance of positional advantage somewhere, 10, 12-team league, whether it be a quarterback or a tight end. And then we're filling in our wide receivers, making sure we have 1 or 2 guys we're really confident in. If we go with a lot of upside with our starting quarterback, we want to maybe consider getting a safer option later on in the draft. If we go with a safe guy, maybe more so if you go with a safe guy, like a guy like Tom Brady or Matt Stafford, even Tannehill, maybe I would probably lean more towards, shoot for a little upside with like a guy like Lance or Justin Fields in like one of the last rounds of your drafts, just as like kind of a draft and stash, right? But that's it. That's all there is. That is kind of my draft strategy. That's how I approach drafts. So I wanted to kind of pitch that over to you guys. Take and do with it what you will. Obviously, take it with a little grain of salt. Freestyle on this one. I know I go on tangents, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my goal of 300 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the fantasy football season. I would really, really appreciate that. Check down in the description for my socials, the link to the podcast. Follow me on Insta, follow me on Twitter. Leave a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast. If you do have an Apple product, I would really, really appreciate it. But that is it. That is all there is. Me, my boy, we are out for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I will catch you next time. And as always, thank you, love you, peace.